Hi, Meg.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi. Good, thank you.
You from Australia?
I've been watching you guys and seeing how it happens, and it's a pretty cool experience. And
Oh,
I think what you guys are doing is pretty memorable. I didn't know other people existed in, I guess, in my illnesses or in general with chronic illnesses, Facebook groups. Where people came together to kind of like encourage others. It was really helpful at the time and got instantly sick. Like I was
yeah,
already sick, but like it got worse. Started learning about sort of that there was a community out there, which was really
yeah.
cool. I've done a radio show once here in Victoria with a disability advocate who has like a little radio show
Hmm.
on one of the ABC channels, and that was really cool to do.
Yeah,
But that's as much as I've done in terms of being able to talk about, I guess, my journey with it and what I see in this community because I'm a bit uh, social anxiety,
yeah.
so I don't get out as much as I would like to in terms of advocating more and a lot of that. I did advocate when I was younger or before sort of things got a bit difficult recently in the last few years. But
Yeah.
I came from out of home care. I don't know what it's called in America, but like it's called kinship care here, which is where legally you're placed with a family member who's not your mother or father. So they're
Oh,
blood
okay.
related, but they're not like your mum or dad. They're like your grandmother or your sister or your aunt, your uncle, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I did a lot of advocacy for that at the beginning, and then once I started getting sick, I learned how to advocate for chronic
Oh,
illness and stuff from there.
a lot of people are able to kind of share their story with 3-minute videos here and there, but they're
Mm,
also interested in doing other things like talking about their wedding in November.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
so I mean, exactly. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you and Sean
Thank
and,
you.
and what you guys have planned.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, it's been 3 years in the making because of COVID. So, like, we originally got engaged actually in America, funnily enough,
mhm.
at Disneyland. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been 3 years in the making because of COVID and things like that. But it's
Yeah.
finally around the corner.
Fibromyalgia, ketamine infusions,
Yeah.
gastroparesis, mast cell activation syndrome, or MCAS, scoliosis, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS, chronic
Hmm.
frontal lobe migraines, borderline Chiari, pelvic joint dysfunction, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome,
Tachycard.
or POTS,
Yep. Hmm.
complex post-traumatic stress disorder, severe complex anxiety disorder, narcissistic abuse syndrome, chronic depression.
Very specific neck and shoulder pain. This whole set of tests, including like full body MRI, and that's how I found out about what he calls it borderline chiari because it's not it's not worked bad enough yet that it would need intervention in terms of surgery. Brain matter or tissue is coming through a open hole in the back of your skull and going into your spine, and your spinal fluid is a lot more overwhelmed in those areas because it's inflamed. It's an inflamed area. It's not ever going to go away, but you can certainly help it with, you know, whether it be like steroid injections or I think it was, there's another type of injection you can get that kind of numbs the area. Um,
Okay.
so I'm like looking into that and seeing if like that will be able to help that. But so that's one of the newest diagnoses, and then recently being diagnosed as well with like the pelvic instability and things like that. So just things that people always kind of put towards is like, well, you know, you have EDS or you have fibromyalgia, so it's most likely just coming from that, an issue that is caused on its own, but is aggravated by your EDS, or it's
Hmm.
made worse by your fibromyalgia. A pain patch that you put on your skin and it lasts for 7 days. So
Okay.
that's my main form of pain relief. And then on top of that, I take a tablet called amitriptyline or MDET, and I take that at nighttime. In the last, I'd say, 8 months, I've had a better 8 months than I've had for seven, like since getting diagnosed. I can work
Yeah.
mostly a normal 9 to 5 most of the time. I mean, there's sometimes I have to take it off because I'm still not perfect and I'm still not well, but
Yeah.
the fact that I can, in general, hold a 9 to 5 job is pretty amazing because I never used to be able to do that. I was told when I was 20 and I first got diagnosed that uh, just be ready to be on the disability pension for your whole life. You probably won't get to go to uni, so look at getting on the disability pension because it's your only option. And that was pretty scary to hear at 20 that
Uh,
like you might not get a life. That
yeah.
really was
Kind of
terrifying
kind
to
of
hear.
dreary, right? Not really
Yeah,
encouraging that you can have a quality of life and find things that you can still be empowered.
yeah, pretty much. It was really scary at the time. I was grateful that I was able to get on it, but I think um it kind of wasn't my choice. I was put on it by a family member who said to like, who agreed with the doctors and made it feel like there was no other option. They
Yeah.
they didn't even maybe encourage me to look at, you know, I don't know, getting the help and then maybe trying for a job. They very much for quite a while were just get on the disability pension, that sort of thing. I don't speak to that family member anymore because they were very toxic, and unfortunately, that's how I got diagnosed with narcissistic toxic abuse syndrome,
Right.
which is a type of mental health disorder that when you live within an abusive home, uh, specifically with someone with narcissism, um, it can cause a lot of mental distress and a lot of mental um, pain. Sometimes things aren't as easy for me as they are for an average person. My mother in law, she knows, for example, with my gastroparesis, that I can't most of the time eat a lot of things like onion or garlic, or sometimes specific vegetables. And so when it comes to like Christmas time and we have all these specific foods that they have for their tradition, they always make sure that there's food that I can eat. They always make sure that there's a version of something that I can eat that isn't going to make me feel sick. So they've they've been really amazing, and they're super like understanding and caring, and I love them to death. So like I can't wait to finally, I guess, be a part of
Yeah.
their family. Gastroparesis is on a spectrum where you could be not as bad, which is, me, or you could be horrible and have like a feeding tube, extremely bloated. I will get severe pain in my stomach, and especially up here in the esophagus, I will get like severe gastric reflux. I can end up in hospital because of from severe vomiting, from constantly bringing up everything in my stomach, and end up with a really severe gastric flare that will land me in hospital and having to be on an IV drip. I've been hospitalized a lot. My nan, who was my carer at the time, she came into my room really late one night because she could hear me crying from the pain. I would get this god awful pain in my legs, and I still do. Sciatica is where it usually starts in your back, so it's somewhere within your back, and it sends really awful paralyzing pain into your legs. I was trying to put a book in the back up on the shelf, and out of nowhere, I just lose feeling in my leg. They ended up like calling an ambulance. They admitted me as a patient and they did all the tests on me. There was a lot of times where the pain would get so bad, my nan would take me in. No one would listen. They'd give me pain relief for a few hours and fluids, and then I'd be sent home. And it was really traumatic because you've got these doctors who weren't listening, who didn't really know what was going on. I remember that night just being on fire, just the pain everywhere was excruciating. I remember like crawling up the stairs to my nan, crying to her, being like, I don't understand why I'm still like this. Why is the pain like this? I think by that point she'd given me like 15 milligrams of Valium and like two of her oxycodone, and nothing was working. I was still in pain. I'm not leaving until you figure out what's wrong with me. You either admit me and figure out what's wrong, or you call the police and have them take me out, because I'm not leaving without an answer. They admitted me. My specialist that I'd been seeing at that point, who had been looking after the chronic pain, who is an amazing woman. I love her, Angela Chia. She's an incredible pain specialist here in Australia. She came by and saw me, was like, oh, look, no surprise you're in here. They finally listened, huh? And I was like, yeah, they finally listened. They tested my thyroid. She's got thyroiditis, which is basically where your thyroid is neither high nor low. They did stuff with my back, and they did all this stuff with my pain. They checked my bloods. They did everything. She does actually have POTS. It hasn't been easy. I have a lot of trauma from hospital. I have scars from it that I can never get rid of, mainly from, I mentioned it earlier at the beginning, but one of the things that I've had done, which is ketamine infusions. So here on this specific vein, I've got a lot of little white dots, and they are all the scars from all the IVs I've had. Everyone has their story, and everyone has a reason to why who they are. Not a day in my life that I remember as a child not being in pain and it being put off as growing pains, or
Mm-hmm.
being just, a child looking for attention.
Yeah.
And so there's always a way to pinpoint where it started. Whether or not it's physical or mental, there's some point that you can see where it began. There was a time where I thought I wasn't seen. I had access to the medications that could have killed me if I just took one too many. And there were many times that I thought about it. But every time that I thought about it, because I came from a traumatic home, that meant that I wasn't the only one who had been traumatized. I had siblings who were
Yeah.
traumatized as well. And I always went back to them with like, if I left this world because I felt unseen, what's going to happen to them? So that's was the reason that always stopped me, was my siblings.
Yeah.
I never went through with it because of them. It doesn't mean that the thoughts weren't there. It doesn't mean that there weren't times that I was alone in my bedroom counting the tablets. I've seen friends who have wanted to, be like that as well, because they felt unseen or they felt lost with their journey. I've seen it happen. I've had family members who have tried and almost succeeded, but we intervened, and
Yeah.
survived it. But it's a scary stigma that's still out
Yeah.
there that not a lot of people talk about, and I think it's pretty high with people, especially who do have mental illnesses, chronic illnesses. It's not talked about a lot that we have thought about it. My perspective on my life changed when I met Sean, because I'd come from such a traumatic home and from such a bad history. Bell's palsy is where a side of your face just droops and
Yeah.
goes numb and completely like gets paralyzed. You were so cute on our first date because your face was half paralyzed. And you were so funny because you were so nervous about it. On our first date, I just barged in with everything. I said, I have this many chronic illnesses. I come from a very traumatic family. I have depression. I have anxiety. I have this, I have that. Like I just listed everything. There's something about this girl, and he chose to stay. And he stayed for the entire date. Is Sunday too soon to have like the second date? He bought a pot of an orchid, um, because his national flower for his country is an orchid, because he's originally from Singapore. He changed my perspective on things in the sense that he was there. He would travel to visit me in hospital. Mind you, he lived 50 minutes the other side of town, but he would travel at the end of the workday through peak hour traffic to get to me, just to hang out with me for an hour after work and then go home. You know, I have videos of him playing the piano in the like waiting room, like the waiting area of the hospital, um, when he would just play the piano for me when I was in getting my ketamine infusions. Um, he'd visit every single day, and he still does. If I have to, up until last year when I was getting the ketamine infusions, he was still coming in if he could. You know, if a work obligation meant that he couldn't, I would be the one to say, no, don't force yourself to come in if you can't. You know, we've been together for nearly 6 years now. You're fine. If you can't come in, it's all good. But the fact that he still tries to do that, you know,
That's beautiful.
um, yeah,
Beautiful people.
he, yeah, he's amazing. And he made me see that just because I have this illness doesn't mean that I have to not live my life. He let me live my life, if that makes sense. No one else in my life said that I could. And he showed me that I could, by going on cruises, going overseas, like I wouldn't have never thought that I could have done those things without him. Like, was going overseas to America scary as with someone with chronic illness? Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
terrified to go through your borders with all my medications, I swear. I had like thousands of papers from my doctors, all
Yeah.
these, like I had one from my specialist, I had one from my psychiatrist, I had one from my GP. I even like went in to see like some of my most specific specialists I only see like maybe once a year, and I just got a letter from them just for safety. I had like a stack of paperwork just to prove that, like, because I was so nervous to go
Yeah, you did
overseas. Like,
a complicated thing. Yeah.
yeah, and but he showed me that just because you might have limitations in some places doesn't mean that it has to stop you. We went to Disneyland, and the majority of the time I was in the like higher wheelchairs that you can get from Disneyland, and he was pushing me around in the wheelchair. We didn't care because we were in Disneyland. He didn't mind. It was like, if you need to sit in the wheelchair because it's too hard for you to walk around Disneyland, that's fine. I'll wheel you around. Works for me because I get free entry. Because like when you're in the wheelchair, you get like special entry into the ride so that you're not like waiting around for as long and things like that. And he didn't care if it meant that he got to take me to the places he'd always wanted to show me. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV series Star Trek.
Yeah, of course.
Um, I call him Spock.
Yeah.
That's my nickname for him because he is quite literally Spock. Everything comes down to
Analytical.
logic
Yeah.
versus emotion. If you had to choose between emotion and logic, he would go with the logic.
Me too.
He's he's very much, there has to be an answer for things. There has to be a way to do something, like in a logical sense. He he definitely doesn't lean into the emotional side like me. I am incredibly emotional versus logical. So we kind of just work because he's very logical and then I'm very emotional. So because I'm emotional, it makes him feel the emotions that he hates feeling. We're both creative. He is in the videography industry, so you
Hmm.
can actually see that's his degree, literally
Yeah.
in screening shot there. So he's in media, and so he's filming every day. And then because of him, it reignited my passion in photography because I did it through high school,
Hmm.
um, and studied it a lot in high school and loved it. It But then when I got sick, I thought there was no chance of me ever being able to do it again. And if it weren't for him giving me his old camera and saying, just give it a shot, you never know what's going to happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. Like, do I have a million clients? No. I maybe get one client every couple of months that wants to hire me to do like a photo shoot for them, or maybe it's every 6 months or something. I may only get a couple of clients a year, but it works out. And if it weren't for him being there to tell me, just give it a go, you
Sure.
never know what's going to happen. It's the same with work. If he hadn't encouraged me to just give it a go, he said, you may have these illnesses that you feel like can stop you, but unless you just see where your limits are, how are you going to actually know? And it was because of him that I was able to get the confidence to try. And I'm now here. I mean, I had a really slow start with the employment industry. My first proper job wasn't until I was 24 years old. But I'm grateful that I got where I am. And, I've gotten to do a lot of different jobs. And that's without any uni degree or any TAFE degree or any form of qualification. I've just done it through experience.
Regardless of all these things that we go through, and that's the spirit of the spoonful of sugar, is you only have so many spoons, but boy, you can use those spoons, and you can share sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pain is
You
pain.
can, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that terminology of like, I've always liked your title, like the spoonful of sugar. Like, I think the idea that, yeah, like you said, we have a set amount of spoons in a day, but how many of them you choose to
Right.
show love, or in your case, sugar, like
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
happiness, and
Or
choose
whatever.
things that are good.
Gifts,
Like,
texts. Yeah. Could be
yeah,
sugar, could
exactly.
be anything, right? But it's all packed in kind of a funner way to say that, hey, you have
Pretty
meaning,
much.
you are seen,
Exactly.
you have value, you are needed here, and no matter your circumstances, there are things that you can do to make a difference in
Mm-hmm.
the world. And you think that we wouldn't have to be reminded of that, or to have a catchy title of spoonful of sugar, or however you want to say it. But boy, every day is a challenge for us to really just buy into that, right? We've got,
Well, I still get down
yeah.
sometimes. I still
Hmm.
forget that sometimes, and I have to remind myself that look where you are
Yeah.
compared to where you were years ago. My psych still reminds me every time I talk to him, if you think about who May was 3 years ago compared to who she is now, you would see an incredibly vast difference.
Yeah.
I think we forget that sometimes we forget how much we've changed in our journeys, and our journeys are long. Some of us are still trying to figure out what our journey is.
Yeah.
I don't know where I want to be in life yet necessarily. I'm still trying to figure out if I have a specific workforce I want to be in. I'm still trying to figure out, is photography where I want to be eventually? With everything that I've got going on. Like, I know one thing's for certain is that I know I want to marry Sean. I know that much, and I'm 100% on that. And I know one day I want to be a mum. I know that much. Um, but I think we got to give ourselves some slack in that we have done so much to survive, and that you got to give yourself time to find and figure out what you want in life, because we're a little bit different than others. Other people might have other challenges or other things going on. They might know who they want to be faster than we do, but just give yourself the slack, because you've done so much fighting to survive, that if you don't know who necessarily what you want to be yet, I don't think that matters because you've
Yeah.
taken so much of your life to just get to where you are. First off, if you are in hospital, you're not alone. There are many of us who have been there, done that. We may not necessarily be in hospital with you, but we know what you're going through. We know what you've experienced. And there's a lot of us out there that you can reach out to and talk to. I mean, my DM's always open. It doesn't matter if I've never met you, I will talk to you. If you have something going on and you just need to rant, I will happily listen. I think that one of the things, like I said before, is cut yourself some slack because you're fighting to live the life you want. And even if that life isn't perfect, even if there's still issues going on, the fact that you've chosen to fight rather than give up says a whole lot about you. And it shows that you want to be on this journey to keep going, to move forward. And we're going to have setbacks all the time. Everybody's going to have setbacks. I still have setbacks. It's about reminding yourself that it's all part of the journey and that eventually you're going to find something that is going to stick and that is going to make sense for you and that is going to work for you as a person. And once you find that, enjoy it, cherish it. It will be for you. But unless you keep fighting, unless you just give it a shot and cut yourself some slack and know that not every day is perfect, not every day is beautiful, and some days are terrifying, you won't know unless you just, yeah, cut yourself some slack and remember that chronic illness isn't easy. It's never easy, but it can become easier when you realize that it's just a part of you. So, yeah, just cut yourself some slack and remember that you're not alone. There are thousands of us out there who are willing to listen and willing to help. We may not be able to help you in the sense of finding a cure or finding what works for you, but we're here to listen. We're here to be your friend, to connect on a level that maybe others can't because they don't know what you're going through, but we can share that. We can, say, yeah, I know what that's like. I know how hard it is, but remember that you'll get through it. You may not seem like it now. Trust me, there are many, many times where I've thought, there's no way I can make it through this.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't have the support that I did from both people online and offline in my real life,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would be where I am today. So it's all about just remembering that there are people out there who are willing and will want to support you. You just got to reach out. I do watch them on YouTube. I do
Yeah.
go back and I watch your reviews. So it's just exciting to be a part of it. So I
Yeah.
really do appreciate it. And when the trailer of this one does come out for the filmed version, I'll definitely be sharing it with my friends and letting them know because I think there's such a cool experience to be able to know that you're over there in America and I got to speak with you is a very exciting thing. And give my love to Nell. I'm sure she's you know, dealing with her own stuff and just let her know that she's very much loved and appreciated and that I very much appreciate the fact that I got to even speak with you. So just, yeah, let her know that I'm very much appreciative and that I hope
Oh,
she, you know, starts to feel okay enough that she can get out of bed for a little bit, even if it's just
yeah.
for a 5-minute walk.
I know that you're playing a very instrumental role in Australia.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, if you ever need any other Aussies who want to talk, I've got some very
Yeah.
incredible people who I know
Hey.
who would love to be a part of this. Jess Cochran, I know you're watching, and you'll probably watch this when it gets filmed.
Yep.
But they're an amazing advocate for chronic illness. They've been in theatre shows based on for chronic illness people. They have been in a film recently. They've done a lot of the only news castings that we've really had about the NDIS or anything to do with disability and chronic illness support, they've been a huge part of that. And they've been a huge part of my life. I met them through Facebook, a Facebook community for people with
Mm-hmm.
chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have figured out who I am.